I've been in this business for 35 years, and it never ceases to amaze me that we put out a daily newspaper and the number of people that are involved in that process every single day. From start to finish, it's quite the process, and it happens every single day. Today, more than ever, it's important that we deliver quality news and information to our readers. It's important that they know what's going on in their community and their country.
You hear it many times, but it's true. You can't have a democracy without the fourth estate, without independent journalists keeping an eye on what's happening around people and letting them know, especially with respect to our role in covering government.
Anything else that you think would be good to know?
At the Recorder, we have a staff of about 24 people, writers, photographers, editors. The ideas for the stories that we produce and put in the paper every day come from a variety of places. Sometimes the story idea comes from events that have sort of been thrust on us. Accidents, two motorcycles collide, people want to know about that, and we rush out to cover it. Governmental activity, if the town government's going to declare Greenfield to be a sanctuary city. But other story ideas are not things that are obligatory of that nature, but just ideas that we find and hear about. So when I say we, I mean the reporters, the photographers, the editors, and other people in the Recorder business office or other aspects of the business. If the ideas come from everywhere, there's a process by which you filter through those and figure out which ones you're going to write about first. If it's a news story, then there's a news editor that orchestrates what the reporters do.
This is a story about Kemsley Academy.
Who knew that there were Chinese students studying English in Wendell?
It's sort of an academy without a purpose at this point. They can't really figure out how to market it, and it's been changing since they bought it in 2011.
The first steps in the process is that collaboration between a reporter and an editor.
You might say, oh, Chinese students in the area, but there's more to it because it's in Wendell, Mass. And Wendell is sort of a very rural, forested type of place, and that's not the type of place you think of having Chinese students going to school.
The idea is explored, discussed. You figure out who the sources of the information you want might be, what the questions you want answered are, and where you might get all of that information.
Let's get all the papers put away because this is messy.
The kids who come here are middle school students from some of the 2 top middle schools in Beijing, intent on learning English so they can come back to the United States and study.
I think of news gathering often as a kind of a scavenger hunt in a way, because I'm only capable of really asking questions that I have knowledge of beforehand. Find out as much about the situation as I can before I interview people about it.
And they've already had weekend sessions in China.
That's correct. Yeah, it's called ACE, American Course English. And they've been prepping for this, specifically all of the kids that are here were in that program to kind of bring the East to the West. That's a big thing for Mark Kemsley, is uniting China and the United States of America.
You might not necessarily hear about community-oriented tidbits, the Chinese immersion school in Wendell. You wouldn't hear about it if it wasn't for small-town community newspapers like The Recorder.
We all like it very much.
It's always people. People are a good part of stories like this, as compared to a fire, some sort of traumatic or dramatic event. How long did it take to put this together? How did they convince students to come? And again, then what do the students think about this very tiny slice of America?
When all the information that seems to make sense to the reporter is gathered, it kind of all comes back to the newsroom. The reporter has a notebook full of information and begins the creative process. Journalists are essentially storytellers at heart. It's no coincidence that some of the best newspaper reporters over the years have gone on to become some of the world's greatest novelists.
Try to find the thing that is most important to the story. You want to try to get that to grab the reader, connect the reader to this individual or group.
In Richie's story about the Chinese school, he used the American flag next to the Chinese flag as a way to pull readers in. We use what's called the inverted pyramid style, so that's you have all of your most important information towards the top of the story, and then it gets more detailed from there. So if you stop reading partway through, you'll get the main gist of the story.
Once the story is done, it now passes out of the reporter's hands into the hands of an editor. At the Recorder, we try to edit stories twice. The first time is by someone I like to call the assignment editor or the content editor. This editor reads the story and he or she is looking for content material. Did we answer all the questions? Are there holes in the story? Then we try to pass the story on to a second editor whose primary responsibility isn't the content so much, but the language.
First step is always to read the copy and check for anything that needs to be cleaned up or added. Also, I'm looking for pieces that might be used, quotes, information that will add to the story, to the layout, and that will bring the reader in. Find the special bits that will entice the reader into reading more of the story.
You know, something that's easy to read, not written in a manner that's, you know, overly verbose. You know, you want to try to keep things succinct, and we look for clarity.
In this one, well, it's a story about Chinese students at a small Wendell school, and so obviously we needed to telegraph that it's about a school situation.
When that process is done, the story moves on to what I sometimes refer to as the packaging phase. We try to tell, in this day and age, stories not just with words like we used to, but with words and pictures, and increasingly, because of the internet, words, pictures, and video.
I'm Paul Franz. I'm the senior photographer here at the Recorder. Photography really helps flesh out the story and we can draw the readers into it. I mean, if I can add 1,000 words to the story with one photograph so people can actually see what's going on. I was sent up to Wendell to illustrate Richie Davis's story about the Kemsley Academy, which is a Chinese immersion school. So I was trying to get pictures of these kids in their natural environment.
At that point, the other stories are brought in, the paper is filled with other stories, and with the push of a button or two, an electronic file, electronic version of that page is sent to our printing presses. That electronic image is converted into a metal plate that gets put on our printing press and ultimately reproduced in the newspaper.
This is a flexographic press, and it takes ink from an inkwell, transfers it to a roller which carries it to your plate and then to your paper. And it's a 4-process color. We start out with black, cyan, magenta, and yellow, and layering those colors we can create almost any color or picture that comes to us. We get our plates delivered and our files delivered through pre-press, and we imprint them over 4 plates for every page of color. If it's only black, then we're only using 1. We start out at either end of the press with our rolls of blank virgin paper and using a web which creates tension between the press and the roll of paper. We hold that paper steady and straight. We can create anything up to 66 or 80 page booklets. We usually run between 20 and 30,000 copies over an 8-hour shift.
We're in between the press room and delivery. So we pretty much get the paper ready for delivery. We get all the inserts in the paper, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We get it ready for delivery.
Today, there's another way to publish news. It's not just in the printed edition of the Recorder, but on recorder.com on our website. And so stories actually take two paths right about here. One path is to the printed page, but also another path goes to the website. No wonder they call it the Daily Miracle.
I had a beautiful dream the other day. I was in a house overlooking a tropical bay. Sunlight streamed in through the walls of glass. White sandy beaches, green